Welcome to the Quantum Empath. I'm your host, Kelley Michelle, intuitive guide, alchemist, and reality hacker. This is a space where esoteric knowledge, ancient wisdom, personal development, and quantum physics meet to help you shift your frequency, break old patterns, and step into the life your soul came here to live. Let's expand your awareness, upgrade your energy, and create your dream reality, one episode at a time. Let's begin. Welcome to the Quantum Empath. My name is Kelley Michelle, and today my guest is Laura Hirsch. She and I have known each other for about a year. And I met her when I was working at the Soul Search Expo in Reno, and she came across my booth. And today, a little over a year later, we have reconnected, and I just want to bring into the awareness of the collective what she's got going on. So hello, Laura, it's good to see you.
Hello, good to see you too. Thanks
How
for having
are
me on.
Yes, absolutely. We had reconnected about a month ago, I think, because you had an exciting update. You had re-released your book that you had written with your son, Trevor. And let's just start. We can talk about the book in a minute and how you got to that. But let's start a little bit with your backstory and how that's brought you to where you're at today and what you wrote the book for. And we'll go through all that.
Okay, well, it's a very long story, but
Okay, well, as much as you're comfortable sharing.
yeah. So the book that we're talking about, I've written several books, but the book that we're talking about it's called More Than Meets the Eye. It's a book I wrote with my son Trevor, who's a non-speaker with autism, who's 28 now. He was born totally normal and ahead of schedule on everything. He was vaccine injured, I'm not going to lie, and spent his entire life trying to regain all of the things that he lost. The main thing he never regained was his speech. He did have some words, but he could never communicate sentences, tell me how his day was, anything like that. He did ABA therapy his whole life, and it was just training him to repeat things So anyway, fast forward to about 5 years ago, he started taking piano lessons and singing. This was when he was done with school. And although he could hardly talk, he could play the piano and sing songs. It's a different part of the brain. So he could hardly say a word all day, but then he could memorize a whole song and sing it. And that was the start of our journey to where we are now. And so then I found out about a book called Underestimated by J.B. Hanley and Jamie Hanley. They're a father and son. And he taught Jamie how to do what's called spelling to communicate and got his voice back through spelling on a letterboard. And I have a letterboard right here. It's basically an A through Z board. And what they found with a lot of these kids is that their deficit is motor planning, and it's not an intellectual disability. So what happens is speech is a very small motor skill, and their deficit is in motor skills, motor planning. And what spelling to communicate does, it takes speech to a large motor movement, poking on a letterboard from the shoulder and out of small motor. And that's why these kids are successful. And there's so many people now that are doing it and getting their voices back. Lots of kids are finding their voice for the first time in their lives in their 20s and even 30s. Any age can do it. But the goal is to get kids that are younger on the letterboards so that they don't have to struggle their entire lives and not have a way to communicate and be frustrated like Trevor was his whole life. So he's an open speller. They call an open speller, which means I can ask him anything and he can just spell his answer to me letter by letter. It's been a life-changing thing for us, for him, and it during our lessons that we were doing to teach him the motor planning, he spelled to me that he wanted to write a book with me about his life to inspire others. So it was his idea to write the book. He also titled the book. I said, "What would you like to call the book?" And he spelled More Than Meets the Eye. So the book is basically in 3 different, well, now 4. We did just put out a second edition because so many things had happened since the first edition came out, and mostly to do with telepathy. So that was one of the incredible things that we discovered while doing our spelling is he started riding a horse, and he would spell to me what happened during the riding lessons is he and the horse were communicating telepathically, and he would tell me all these beautiful things that they talked about. And when I knew that there was no doubt that this was happening was on 2 separate occasions, he knew that another horse died. No one told Trevor this, but the horse that he was riding, Blackjack, told him. He spelled once that Blackjack was sad today because Buck died. And Buck was another horse that Trevor had ridden the year before. He also said he was telepathic with him, but he wasn't spelling openly yet, so he couldn't really tell me about their conversations. And then another time, we went to visit Blackjack, and he spelled that Blackjack was sad today because Sully had died. And I didn't even know who Sully was, so I messaged my friend who worked there, and she says, "Yes, Sully did die, and that was the horse right next to Blackjack in the stall." And then also, this happened since the first book came out, but Blackjack also passed on. He had cancer and had to be put down, and I was so devastated to have to tell Trevor about it because he just loved his horse and they had such a beautiful connection. And when I told him, he started laughing and was smiling. And so when I spelled to him about it, I said, "Did you already know?" And he spelled, "Yes, Blackjack told me." And I said, "Well, what do you feel about that?" And he spelled, "I'm happy that Blackjack is going to heaven and I can ride him now every day on the hill." And what the hill is it's a place that these kids that like Trevor go, like when they're sleeping. It's another state of consciousness where they've been going their whole lives, but we didn't know this until they started spelling and saying the same story and calling it the hill. And this all came out in the Telepathy Tapes, which were a part of that. And it's a really huge podcast. And we can talk about that a little bit more. But Trevor, after Blackjack did pass, he spelled to me that he does see Blackjack on the hill and that he's with the rest of the herd. And so their story continued, which is so beautiful. Like their love and their bond continued after he passed. And then another story, another horse passed after Blackjack passed. And I saw it on their social media. And I just said, "I bet you Trevor knows this." So I said, "I just found out that another horse at Card passed. You know who it was?" And he spelled his name, Roscoe, Roscoe. And I said, "How did you know that? Did you know it because you were reading my mind because I know it?" And he said, "No, Blackjack told me and showed me that he's with him." So it's just, he's living this entirely different experience in life. And I had no idea until he started spelling to me. And I've just found out so many things about him. Like I didn't even know my own son until we started spelling. And it's been the thing that unlocked him, and it's unlocking all these kids. And they've always been in there, and we just did not presume competence in them. And now that so many people are, it's just so beautiful to be a part of it.
I agree. And before I met you, I was a diehard fan of the telepathy tapes and just telling everybody that I met, please listen to the telepathy. You have to listen. It's the most magical and amazing and eye-opening show to listen to and to find out how smart, intelligent, genius level these kids are. And they're not even kids, they're adults, they're souls, and they're just so incredibly tapped into the source consciousness.
Mhm.
And as people who have a speaking voice, for us to communicate, it's fairly quick. But for them to communicate, to spell the things out, especially because I've listened to Trevor's episodes and they were asking him some pretty tough questions and he was spelling out some pretty long answers.
Mhm.
And I was just thinking, "Oh my gosh, he doesn't need to prove himself. He obviously knows what he's talking about."
Mhm.
And so I felt really connected into him just recently, but I'll tell you more about that later. But yeah, it's just an incredible show. So if people haven't listened to that. So when you started communicating with him, what was the thing that you treasure the most in all of that? What's it opened up for you?
A lot. Mostly just all these kids like Trevor are just, like you said, they're genius level. I think they're here to teach us a lot, like more just opening up the rest of us to what life is all about and consciousness and that we're eternal beings. And so many, I think that's why the telepathy tapes is so popular is it's just opening up the world's eyes to not just who these kids are, but all of us are and the potential of all of us. And for those who don't know what the telepathy tapes is, it's a very popular podcast hosted by Kai Dickens, and she's a filmmaker. And there's just going to be starting the third season. So we got started in it because we used to do work with this. She's a teacher, and she was in the teacher's episode of the telepathy tapes where she was communicating telepathically with one of her students. And we worked with Susie Miller, is her name. We worked with her doing she would talk to the collective consciousness of these kids a long time ago, and we did this intention experiment, and all the kids improved that were in it, and so she knew from my social media that Trevor was a speller, and she knows that he's telepathic, and she connected with him telepathically. So they were doing a spellers episode of the telepathy tapes, and we were included in that. So Kai asked all the kids the same questions, and all their answers are in the episode. It's episode 10 of season one. And then after that, Trevor and I started doing music telepathy. And the way it came, how it happened was pretty crazy. I had a dream that I could sing a song in my head and I could ask Trevor to hear it, like he could hear me telepathically singing it and spell the song to me on his letterboard. So after I had the dream, I go running in his room, woke him up, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I just had this dream that I could sing a song in my head and you could hear it and spell it. Let's try it." So I started singing his favorite song to play on the piano. It is Puff the Magic Dragon. So in my head, not out loud, I just sang a little bit of the chorus. It's just Puff the Magic Dragon lives by the sea. Hand him his board and he starts spelling Pufftem. And I'm like, oh my God, no way. So then I said, "Okay, let's try another one." And so his favorite band is Duran Duran, and one of mine too. And so I started singing Rio, the chorus, just her name is Rio, and she. So I give him the board. What song is that? RIO. And then I said, "Who sings that?" Duran Duran, he spells. So that started this whole music telepathy. So we've done hundreds of songs by now, and I've written it all down. I'm a meticulous note taker. And so then I reached out to the telepathy tapes because I just thought this was incredible. This was nothing like they've ever showed anybody doing. And so they came out here, one of the producers, Catherine Ellis, and then Dr. Jeff Tarrant, who we had been working with at a distance doing telepathy testing. And Trevor got everything right at a distance, even. And I'll talk about that in a second. But they came out here and tested us. They actually used Chat GPT to pick the songs, so it wasn't even songs that I chose. And Trevor got them all right. Like in the episode, we did a talk tracks episode, so it's in between seasons 1 and 2, and it's just about us and the music telepathy. And they also use a random number generator to generate 6-digit numbers, and I'd just say the number in my head, and he would spell the numbers. Got them all right. But the odds of getting all of them right are impossible. So it proved that we are indeed telepathic with each other.
Yeah.
And even at a distance, so Dr. Tarrant lives in Oregon, and Trevor and I each had a computer. Jeff would send a random number, a random word, or a Zenar card, and I would just say it in my head, and Trevor would have a letterboard on the computer that he would have to point. And again, we'd do 5 of each, and he got every single one right. So
Yeah,
it was different ways of testing our telepathy, so in person and distance. So that's all featured in our episode of the talk tracks.
that's
Then
amazing.
we are also in a third episode. It's in season 2. I think it's episode 5 on animal telepathy. And I'm right at the beginning talking about a lot of the stories with animals and especially with Blackjack.
Okay, we'll have to link those in the show notes for people. Yeah, I am a huge fan. And there's the gentleman who is speaking with the Alzheimer's
Mhm.
patients because he was able to telepathically communicate. And then the girl who could speak to plants. And
Mhm.
it's amazing. And if I wasn't working in the quantum myself, it might be harder for me to believe. But then all this information for me does is confirm the experiences that I've been having for several years,
Mhm.
which might be a good lead into when you and I met. I was
Mhm.
so excited because I wanted so badly to share the egg with you and Trevor and see. I had heard so many good things about the egg, but I hadn't really ever experienced it. So you came and tried it, full disclosure, and you did have a little bit of a detox symptom
Mhm.
and felt like you got a little bit of a cold. And you're like, no, Trevor is good right now because he has some other things that he's working on. And so you wanted to wait. And so I think me having some time under my belt to do some of the different work that I've been doing in the quantum with the egg, and then you reaching out to let me know that you had released your book. I said, hey, are you guys ready to try the egg yet? And I sent you some distance services
Mhm.
to you and your mom and your other son
Mhm.
and Trevor. Can we go into how that kind of all felt for you guys and what your experience was?
Yeah, and even the house
Then the
and our
house. We
dog
did the house. Yeah.
and Lulu, our pug.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Trevor's super sensitive to energy, so he feels distance healing and can spell to me what he felt. And one of the things we've been struggling with here at this house, and Trevor sees spirits. He's very clairvoyant. He's clairaudient. He's everything, feels everything, sees everything, senses everything, hears everything. And so we have, and he's spelled to me that there's a spirit that kind of came with the house, and you had done your thing to try to figure out what was going on in the house and the vibration of everybody in the house. So the house was at a low vibration, and it's a gorgeous house. You'd never know that there was a spirit here. So Trevor spelled that there was a spirit here that's haunting him. And he even named him, and it's a weird name, but he kept spelling this word Tiade, Tiad. And he said that's the name of the spirit that's been haunting him. And out of nowhere, Trevor will just get really upset. He'll hit his wall, he'll run down the hall, and he'll spell that it was Tiad. And sometimes he'll see him outside, sometimes he'll see him inside. And then after the first distance healing with the egg, he spelled that Tiad has gone to the other side. Like it was a spirit that was trapped here. And Trevor, after that, was really calm and he didn't see Tiad anymore. But then after maybe it was the second or third one, he said he saw him again outside, but that he comes and goes now. So it's like he's still kind of attached, but he's no longer stuck, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that was his big thing, big takeaway was that Tyad was able to be released from the house. And then the energy of the house went up when he was no longer here. Trevor never would go outside. Like we've lived here 3 years and he would say that he sees him outside his room and his bedroom window faces that outside. And he used to go outside all the time in our old houses, but here he was afraid. He said he was afraid to go outside in the backyard.
Yeah.
So this spirit is now not here. And My mom's frequency went up also. Trevor's was off the chart the whole
Yeah.
time. Mine went up, Damon's went up, and good things had been happening in Damon's life. It's so funny because Damon was having some pain in his throat and then in his back, and he's like, "Can you ask Trevor what's going on with me and see what I can do about it?" And he was getting scared. Do I need to go to a doctor? And we don't really see doctors, but Trevor spelled, I said, "What's going on with Damon? Is he having pain?" And he spelled vaping. And I didn't know he was vaping. He kept it to himself and he told me he fessed up afterward. But then I said, "What can Damon do to heal?" And he said, "Stop vaping." Duh. But then we also used some essential oils and stuff and now he stopped. He went cold turkey. Then he said, "I did a little bit." But then just the other day, he said, "I'm proud to say that I'm not doing it at all anymore." And it all came from Trevor spelling and calling him out, basically. And he said, "Yeah, I've been vaping for years now, every day." And I had no idea. But
Wow.
so that was able to overcome that.
Hmm.
And with me, I have been going through some stress with his dad not paying child support on time and things like that. And it affects Trevor. He picks up on my stress. So I've been trying to work on my stuff, and my frequency went way up too. My mom was grieving and trying to hide her grief. She's lost two children in 5 years. My brother died in 2019, and my sister died a few years ago. So she just kind of keeps all that in and doesn't want anyone. And so once I brought that up, she released it, and she knows all about the spiritual stuff. And Trevor always spells that he sees them, and that's very comforting to her. We went to this another healing modality, and he spelled, "I saw Auntie Kim and Uncle Ricky," and they said, "Tell Grandma we love her."
Oh.
So he's a medium. I mean, he's
Yeah.
able to see people and pass along messages, and that was another huge eye opener for me. And one of the main ones, and I talk about all this in the book too, but my first husband died when I was 27, and Trevor never met him. He wasn't born yet, but he spells his name all the time. And his name's Darren. And I said, finally, he calls him one of his angels. And I said, "How long has Darren been one of your angels?" And he spelled, "Since before I was born." And I was like, "Okay, wait a minute." And I said, "So what does that mean? That you had past lives together?" And he said, "We've had many past lives together." And I said, "Anything else?" And he spelled, "He's my number one protector." So to me, it's like they had a soul contract before Trevor came into my life as my son, which we also have a soul contract of being mother and son. But Darren also agreed that he was going to protect my son, knowing what his life was going to be.
Yeah. That's
So,
beautiful.
so comforting, just. And I wouldn't have known that if Trevor hadn't spelled it to me.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have. Well, I guess seeing a medium, another medium could have brought through that information, but for it coming through Trevor.
Absolutely. There's a lot more reassurance because I do soul contract readings for people
Mhm.
when they work with me. And it is interesting how the dynamics between families, it runs deep. And so I know that one of my ex-boyfriends is an ancestral soul contract. And that's why my mom is so attached to him because she and him had soul contracts and he was her son in another life. And that's why she's still, kind of attached.
Wow.
And it makes sense that my son is ancestral and another one is a healing soul contract. And you and I, I'm sure, have been soul sisters in other lives. And who knows? I
Yep.
mean, it's all connected. And I don't believe any of us are here connecting the dots without being some sort of spirit family, soul
Yep.
tribe collective. And I don't, I haven't met Trevor, but I feel connected to him
Mhm.
when I'm working with him, when I'm doing his sessions. I literally feel like I'm communicating with him. He
Yep.
is so, he is so high vibration that I it's interesting. I can just say it's interesting. When I'm talking to somebody who is maybe still on the Bovis scale. So when we talk about the charts, we're kind of talking about how high someone is vibrating, and he vibrates off the charts.
Mhm.
And so he's just full. Oh my goodness. Amazing. I cannot wait to meet him.
I know. I'll have to have him come and
And
do the egg in
yeah,
person.
you and him and mom and you guys can all come in, and we could even just have you guys do a little family session. So I would love that.
Yeah, that'd be
But
awesome.
how should people get a hold of you?
I have a website.com, so it has a lot of things on there. So all my books I've written are on there. It has links to get them if you want to buy them. Also, I have videos of us spelling together and Trevor playing the piano and singing Puff the Magic Dragon at a recital, and all the podcast interviews I've done prior to this about our book. And actually, here's the book. If you do get it, make sure you get the second edition. The first one's still available, but the second edition is the one that has all the stuff with the telepathy in it and a lot of other stories with telepathy and the other gifts that Trevor has. And he's the one who actually spelled that he wanted to do a second edition. It was so funny because he loves music, so he spelled that he wanted to listen to albums, and it actually came through a medium. Like,
Wow.
when I was at the fair and met you, I had a reading with Jared, the medium, and he said he connected with Trevor, and he said, "Does he have a record player?" And I said, "No," and he says, "He's showing me a needle on a record over and over and over, like, that's what he wants." And it was right before Christmas, and so I got him one for Christmas a year ago, and then he'll spell to me what bands he wants and what albums he wants to hear. So we just got the Journey album, Greatest Hits, in the mail, and I was playing it that night. And I asked him a question about the book, and he said he once before he said we didn't need to write another book, but then he said we needed to write a second edition. And I said, "Well, what would you call it, the fourth chapter if I added a fourth chapter?" And he spelled The Journey Continues as Journey's playing in the background. So I said, "Okay, let's do it." And just I had all our notes and everything from the telepathy tapes, podcasts, and the story wasn't done, is
Yeah.
what he said. Now it's complete. And so yeah.
Well, I am so grateful for you sharing your story with me today. It's so nice to know you on a different level and hear this part of your journey that I didn't really know
Yeah.
about. I look forward to hanging out with you in the near future.
Me.
Again, thank you for your time and stay on the line. I'm going to close this up, and thank you, audience, for being here, for the listeners who have been tuning into the podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to try and get Laura to send me all these links so you can find information in the show notes. And we will catch you all in the next episode. And in case you missed it during the show, just remember you can reach me at www.staytunedsoultherapy.com. You can find all my goodies and services there or in my link tree. Thank you for being here. Your subscriptions, your follows, your shares, they all mean the world to me as I proceed on this path, helping with the Great Awakening and reminding you what an amazing, powerful soul you truly are.